When Adobe switched to a subscription model in 2013, they thought they'd finally beaten piracy. 2 days later, a cracked version appeared online. It took 2 days to break a system Adobe spent millions developing. How? Well, the best way to figure out how to break a lock is to get the key. In software terms, that's a serial number or a license key. Type in the right numbers and you're in. And that's exactly how it was in the 80s, with floppy disks and code wheels. But the situation escalated when the 90s came. SafeDisk and Secure ROM claimed to make games and software completely piracy-proof, but they only lasted around a week before being cracked. Even dongles, physical USB keys required to run software, got cloned or emulated within days of release. Fast forward 30 years and nowadays we have DRMs, digital rights management, which are like bouncers to a bar, except that bouncer is monitoring your actions 24/7 and can boot you at any time. This is, very simply, how Adobe's modern Creative Cloud works, constantly checking if you have the right to be there. Sounds complicated, right? Well, not really. Let's take this one step at a time. What actually happens when you launch Photoshop? How do you even know? To tackle this problem, a program called OllyDbg is sometimes used. When a legit copy of Photoshop is launched, using OllyDbg alongside it reveals exactly how the program is communicating with Adobe servers, and more importantly, exactly how the program knows that it is indeed a legit copy. If you ran OllyDbg on Photoshop right now, this is what you would see in a very simplified manner. The first thing that happens is that the program scans your computer from processor to hard drive ID to generate a unique hardware fingerprint, the equivalent to a DNA test. Alongside this, the program performs a series of validation checks, verifying your serial number using very complicated math. Both of these are then RSA encrypted simultaneously, the same process that protects your information in the online banking world. This is the first point where hackers can get in. Using a debugger like IDA Pro, interactive disassembler, hackers, and security researchers take this code and transform it into assembly, the human-readable version of what your computer actually executes. When the program goes into its mathematical algorithm check stage, crackers will use IDA Pro to set breakpoints at these crucial moments, freezing the program right when it's checking the serial. They can see exactly what values the program is comparing, what encryption keys it's using, and how it decides if your serial is valid. They then use this to modify the code to either skip the checks entirely or always return a valid result. For online validation, they create fake servers that mimic Adobe's responses, essentially tricking Photoshop into thinking it's talking to Adobe when it's really talking to itself. This encrypted package then travels to Adobe's servers, which verifies your identity and responds with an encrypted token, essentially a temporary passport that proves you're a legit user. With our tools, we can intercept that encrypted packet and alter or tamper with it so Photoshop thinks that we're legit. The program then decrypts and stores this token, checking it periodically to ensure you're still authorized to use the software. It's essentially like having a bouncer follow you around the bar, but you already convinced the bouncer that you're legit. The end result? A cracked version of Photoshop that thinks it's properly licensed, when actually all its security measures have been carefully dismantled, piece by piece. Speaking of, thanks so much for all the support on the channel lately. It really means a lot, and I want to give something back to you guys. So do you need a job? That sounded a bit weird. But whether you're a UX designer, app developer, freelancer, or just a curious viewer, I want to get to know you guys, share some UX and UI tips, and maybe even get a gig. So I made a Discord channel for us and want to make this the place to be for front-end professionals. And I'm having talks with people to get some employers in there so you can connect with them too and find some jobs in the future. I'm really excited to get this thing started, so I hope you'll join me. There's always the option to also be more direct and inject a patch directly into Photoshop's code and change the check instructions to always assume paid. But if the situation is particularly tricky, we could deploy a loader. Think of a loader like a skilled impersonator standing between Photoshop and Adobe's servers. When Photoshop tries to phone home to verify your license, the loader intercepts this communication in real time and pretends it itself is Adobe. More technically, the loader injects its own code directly into Photoshop's memory while it's running. It locates the specific functions responsible for license verification and replaces them with its own versions, like a sort of patch itself. When Photoshop attempts to validate your license, the loader then crafts a perfect fake response, matching exactly what Adobe's servers would send, complete with properly formatted encryption, valid-looking timestamps, and all the security tokens Photoshop expects to see. The message never gets to Adobe's servers because, in Photoshop's mind, the loader is Adobe. What makes loaders particularly effective is that they don't modify Photoshop's files on your disk. They only alter the program in memory, making them harder to detect since the software itself remains unchanged. It's also why some cracks require you to run a loader every time you start Photoshop. The modifications only last until you close the program. But even if Adobe has lost this battle every time in almost under a week, they've, fortunately or unfortunately depending on which way you see it, found a way to go around this whole cracking issue. Just host a bunch of features that operate entirely and only on the Adobe servers themselves. A lot of the more recent and critical features are steadily being moved to cloud-only processing. Take Photoshop's new neural filters. While you can crack the basic program, these AI features run entirely on Adobe's servers. You send an image, their cloud processes it, and returns the result. There's nothing to crack locally because the actual processing never happens on your computer. So there's next to no risk for Adobe of anyone cracking this feature, because cracking this means cracking Adobe servers themselves. That would be the least concerning thing the company would have to worry about if someone managed to do that. There's only one problem with this solution. It's almost never someone that figures out a crack to a program like Photoshop. It's a bunch of someones. Behind every major software crack is a highly organized team known as a release group. Think of them like specialized military units, each member with a specific role in the operation. Groups like Core, Reloaded, and CPY operate with incredible precision. Reverse engineers using IDA Pro, dedicated programmers writing complex loader scripts, and QA teams meticulously testing every crack across different system configurations. These aren't random hackers. They're skilled specialists working together, often competing with other groups to be the first to crack new protection systems. The moment Adobe releases a new protection, the game begins, and the race is on between these groups. They don't just want to break the software, they're competing for recognition in an underground community where technical excellence is the ultimate currency. When Adobe launched Creative Cloud's new protection in 2013, teams worldwide began dissecting its code within hours. In fact, in this particular case, the team that got there the fastest did something unprecedented. They released a meticulously documented 90-page technical breakdown of Adobe's entire security system, revealing everything from encryption algorithms and server handshakes to authentication protocols, revealing vulnerabilities that even Adobe's internal teams hadn't even discovered. But the most important part of these operations is that they operate under self-imposed rules. Banking software, off limits. Medical systems? Absolutely not. For them, cracking Photoshop isn't about piracy. It's about proving that no protection is perfect. And this has led many crackers to legitimate careers. Some now lead security teams at major tech companies, including Adobe. In a twist of irony, the same skills used to break protection are now being used to build it stronger. The revolving door keeps on going, and the fun will never stop.